You may be seated. I'm so glad to see you guys. They're having baseball, and some of our guys are playing ball this morning, and I'm sure Russell and Levi are trying to catch a largemouth bass this morning, aren't they? Yeah. Is it a tournament they're in? Well, I hope they win the thing. I don't know, because I don't know if I could live with Russell if he won, I'd be like, they didn't win yesterday, but they could win today, right? All right, that's all that matters. You're never out of it until it's over, I guess. I was thinking the same thing about turkey season, but it's pretty much over now for me. I'm like, after yesterday, we got our tail whipped, and so it kind of makes you aggravated. But I'll be back there next year doing the same thing, doing the same stuff. I'm having trouble with my lawnmower. I have this big, huge lawnmower at my house, and it's really old. I don't know exactly how old it is, but it's like it was probably wore out when the guy that had it before me bought it. Does that make sense? Have you ever had something like that, a piece of equipment like that? And so I have this old lawnmower, and it's got a 72-inch cut on it. And this thing will mow. I think when I'm mowing, when you mow and you have a lot of time on your hands and you're thinking, I'm going, every time I go around, that's 12 feet I've taken off this yard. 12 feet every time. And I'm thinking, man, that's a lot of distance. And that beats going around and around and around and around and around 2 or 3 times more than that because you have a smaller deck. But anyways, my mower, I have a problem with it. Either I'm too cheap or stupid or something, but I can't find a belt for the deck. And the belt for the deck it's got to be 23 inches long by 1/2 inches thick. And when you go to buy a belt, if you don't have the number for your belt, I want to give you a little piece of advice. If you have a belt like you think you need to change or might need to change a belt on something that's a little bit older, when you find the belt that works, you keep the package because that number is the key for finding your belt. It's not like you walk in and go, I need a belt like this one, because then they have to go to the computer and they find, but this belt, like the computer don't help, they have to go back and get that big, what do you call those 3-ring binders that's like this thick, and they set it on their counter and they go, and they open it up. And so if O'Reilly's has to do that, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? Like you better start praying right then. I was at O'Reilly's and I was trying to buy a belt. I'd bought one, it wasn't right. Took it back to Anderson. They said the closest one where you can get you one of these belts is in Neosho. So I was like, I'll go there now. So I went to Neosho, and a guy's like, I was like, man, that belt is too thick. It was supposed to be 5/8, but it was like 21/32 or something like that. So you guys that can do all that real cool math in your head can figure out how much or less that is in 5/8. And I was like, that is going to be too thick for this lawnmower, the pulley, because it's got to go, the back side has got to run through. And I've already had it with this belt. I mean, really have had it with this belt. And I am in O'Reilly's, and there's stuff going, people coming in, and this guy's trying to help me. And there's an O'Reilly employee. He's a kid. I know of him, and he's in the parking lot instead of being in and helping. And the assistant manager finally goes out and says, calls him the name and come on, because the phone's ringing. He's trying to help me, and this guy's out here hobnobbing with a dude that, okay, have y'all ever seen Duck Dynasty? Do you know the guy Godwin on Duck Dynasty? Okay, he's like Godwin, but like a bigger beard and probably outweighs Godwin significantly. And I'm like, okay, dude, he's just jihading with this guy. He needs to come in and help. And finally, the assistant manager went out. Well, the dude walks in. The big guy, the Godwin guy. Let's just call him Godwin, okay? Because we don't know his name. I don't know who he is. You may know him after I tell this story, okay? But he comes in the house or in the shop there in O'Reilly's, and this kid starts working, and this guy walks in, and he walks into the back of the store. He's wearing shorts and T-shirt, and he just comes in. He comes back and he's got like a piece of hose and he's going like doing like, and I'm like, who is this joker? This cat, like, and so I'm thinking, dude, you are like, you need a life. I'm thinking he's that guy that goes to O'Reilly's to hang out with some car junkies because he's that guy. I'm totally like got him pegged for this person that is like just wasting time and wasting everybody else's time in the process. This dude has got the book out and he's looking for my belt, and this guy's over there hobnobbing with everybody that's coming in and swinging his tube or whatever around, and I'm like looking over there and I'm like, dude, this guy has got to get alive. Finally, he comes over, and you know there's a split between the counters. He comes over and stands by me now. I'm like, dude. And so I'm kind of, when I'm done with somebody, and I know this is not right, when I'm done, I'm like, dude, I've already made my mind up. I'm like, so I'm kind of like, what? But I want to be nice, I want to be Christian. And so he goes, what kind of belt you looking for? Well, it's, and this guy tells him, and this dude, Godwin, walks away. And I'm like, whatever, and he's, pretty soon he comes back and he goes, here, try this one. He throws a belt down on the counter. It's the best option, basically, probably that O'Reilly's has in their store for me at that point. Godwin, the annoying guy, comes in, and this dude's got a book. I guarantee you, he didn't even use a book. I guarantee you, I would love to have known what he did, but I guarantee you, he walked to the back, and he comes back out, and he goes, you might try this one. I guarantee you, he knew more about belts than probably anybody in that whole store, including the dude with the computer and the book. And I had already wrote him off as like, this guy needs to go find something to do. And then I heard somebody go, hey, so when are you going to come back to work? He goes, I think I'll get I guess he had an operation or some sort. And I'm like, oh, this guy is probably in O'Reilly's because it's probably his life. He knows. I guarantee you, I bet you he knows everything about all that stuff that's in there. How often, oh man, and when I thought about this, whoosh, 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 okay, how often do we qualify people for the kingdom? How often do we qualify people for the kingdom? If they look like someone that meets the eye test, I'm all about them. There's a story, it's a spot on story for this Godwin guy in 1 Samuel. And it's when Saul had lost favor with God as king, and God sent Samuel to go and anoint a new king. And he said, I've chosen someone out of Jesse. I need you to go see his sons, and I need you to go and anoint someone. And, oh my goodness, there is this story, when you start reading through it, and you start looking at it through these eyes all of a sudden, the eyes of who am I qualifying for the kingdom, all of a sudden, man, it really takes us down a road that speaks truth to me as a child of God and a follower of Christ. Anthony, we had breakfast Friday, and we ate breakfast together. And man, he was like speaking truth into my life about things about people that come to church, and I mean, like Anthony is like tearing me up, man, at breakfast, like, hey, thanks for coming, Anthony, that was fun for everybody but me. So anyways, but yeah, it was awesome. I mean, like, so when we read this story, I want you to think about who we qualify for the kingdom based on our eye test. So now the Lord said to Samuel, this is verse 1. Now the Lord said to Samuel, how long, listen to what he says. Listen, this is so good. How long will you mourn for Saul? I guarantee you Samuel had some issues with this. God made Saul king, and he couldn't, in his own mind, I have a feeling, why would God call him out on it? He couldn't let Saul go as king. He goes, how long are you going to mourn for that guy? I guarantee you, Samuel had a way. He's thinking God is probably going to restore Saul. God's going to do, I mean, I don't know what he was thinking, but there had to be something. There was a rub there, or God wouldn't have called him out on it. He goes, how long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse, the Bethlehemite, for I have provided myself a king among his sons. That's pretty clear. He don't tell him who it is, which son it is, but it's pretty clear. It's not going to be Saul. It's going to be Jesse's son. And Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hears it, he will kill me. But the Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Then invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what you shall do. You shall anoint for me the one I named you. So Samuel did what the Lord said and went to Bethlehem. And the elders of the town trembled at his coming and said, do you come peaceably? I thought that was kind of a funny side note. These people in this town, they're like scared to death of Samuel. He's like, oh no, he's bringing some serious truth, and God's backing him up, and we better be on the right deal, you know. And he said, peaceably, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to the sacrifice. Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. So here's where it gets really good. Verse 6. So it was when they came that he looked at Eliab and said, listen to this. This is what he says. Surely the Lord's anointed is before me. He walks in, and I guarantee you he's the oldest, and I bet you he is a stud-looking dude. I mean, I bet he's ripped. I bet he is good-looking. I bet he has got that look of a leader, you know, that chiseled look, that jaw that is determined. He walks in front of Samuel, and Samuel does exactly what I do. I throw the eye test on him and go, oh man, that's the one. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the what? Heart. So Jesse called Abinadab and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, neither has the Lord chosen this one. Then Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, neither has the Lord chosen this one. Then Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. And Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, are all the young men here? Then he said, there remains yet the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep. Oh, he don't qualify. Dude, we didn't even let him come in. He's out there in the field. See him out there? See that kid out there with the sheep? That's who. See that guy Godwin that comes in and swinging the hose around, talking smack to everyone? He don't qualify to find me a belt. Dude, you are just taking up space. There remains the youngest, and there he is keeping the sheep. And Samuel said to Jesse, send and bring him, for we will not sit down till he comes here. So he sent and brought him in, and I'm sure he was rough, and says now he was ruddy with bright eyes and good looking. And the Lord said, arise and anoint him, for this is the one. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose and went to Ramah. Here's the deal. The great prophet Samuel was in the eye test business just like we are. This is God's anointed prophet. And he's in the eye test business just like I am. He looks the part. He looks keenly. He looks like good leadership material. He looks like the all-American. How easy is it to make sure everyone is converted before they hit our church? The people that we love to see are the people, and this is me, that makes me comfortable. They're the people that walk in, and they're the ones that I can instantly fellowship with and take in and feel comfortable with. I really like people that have a lot to offer. Almost like going on a dating site. Like me, if I went on a dating site, I would look for some little lady that was shorter than me, had curly hair and big bright eyes, and was like a school teacher. And see, that's like what we do with God. That's what I do so often. Like, what can these people offer me? God, can you send us a whole mess of super talented people that are ready to plug in and change the world? That's what we ask God to send us. I do. So maybe you don't. I ask God, I want people to come in, but I want the people that can walk in and plug in. God doesn't evaluate talent as man evaluates talent. Verse 7, for the Lord does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Remember John the Baptist? He was a forerunner to Jesus. He was the guy that came to tell people that Jesus was coming. He would not fit in most church Sunday schools. If your kid had John the Baptist as the Sunday school teacher, there would be people that would be going to the pastor going, I am not letting my kid go in there with that guy. He wore camel's hair. He really wore camel's hair. He ate locusts. And I don't know if it was like the locusts we think of or like big grasshoppers or the chocolate covered. I don't know. He literally ate locusts and wild honey. Did he have it in like a jar and he dipped the locusts in? You better be preparing the way. Jesus is coming. And he's got camel hair and he probably stunk. Man, he would never have qualified for Ironworks Church. He could not be a leader here. I would have been like, dude, we got to do something about the guy. What? He didn't get much eye appeal, but man, was he called by God. Athletics is a great way to compare this stuff. Have you ever seen those kids that they have all the latest gear? Like literally, if they've made it and you can wear it, they'll have it on. Their shoes, everything. And then there will be some kid that walks out there and he's got his sneakers on and he's got on some shorts and he's like he's not wearing any tape and he just pounds everybody else. And the dude with the cool sneakers is just like, he just looks the part. I mean, it's like you have these kids. I call little Fish and Monica, and what's Monica's little boy? Blaine. I call them dirt eaters. I mean, those little suckers, they just have these little dirt eating attitudes, and they just go out there and play, and it's fun to watch. Have y'all seen those bumper stickers that says, "My kid beat up your honor student"? Those kids. Somehow they seem to be the ones that actually know the game. There are kids that have all the natural attributes, but they literally have no passion or heart for the game. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Being a sold-out follower of Christ isn't usually very glamorous. It is a grind with peaks and valleys. We aren't always going to be a superstar. How many super talented people have walked away from the church because their hearts were not in it? God looks at our heart. Will they give the effort? Will they stay the course? Will they fight the good fight? Will they pick up their cross daily? Will they stand in the gap for others? Will they share the load? Can they trust in God when it seems like they're all alone and when they feel like giving up? Do they understand what this commitment means? The people that just look the part may not know this. God looks at people that he can go, you know what? He wants everyone saved, but he looks at these people and he goes, this kid right here, this guy right here, he's going to stand the test. He grew up in a test his whole life. He can stand the test. 2 Corinthians 4, 7 through 10 tells us a little bit about that test. It says, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. That right there does not bring sunshine and happiness to Christians. That's not one of those things that we go home and that's our banner. That doesn't sound fun. The people that God needs and we need in our church are people that they'll come in and they may not look the part and act the part and be the part, but man, they love God more than they love anything else. I don't need to be a talent scout for church. I need God to allow people to walk in that door that they can be changed by this God, that they become the people He wants them to be. It's not because of Kevin dressed them up appropriately. See, when you sign up to be a follower, God examines our heart. He knows that we're going to struggle. But if we read on down to verse 16 in that 2 Corinthians, it says, therefore do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. Here's the thing. People walk into church, and here it's a completely different deal. And Chris wears this shirt about religion. It says reject religion. And what's it say? Embrace Jesus. Listen to this. Do we have religion or do we have a passion? Do we have religion or do we have a passion? Religion won't last, but passion for Jesus that is fortified by a relationship with Him is the thing that will last. I'm telling you, there's days that, man, I'm hanging it up and I'm done. And I go and speak to guys like Anthony and Chris and Todd and Kyle and Bill and these guys and my wife, especially, man, my wife, and they talk and they speak truth into me. And they tell me to keep the faith. They tell me to keep the course. And man, it's this deal where I can't carry everybody else's junk. I got to let God do that. I don't need to worry about being the one that does the scrubbing. God does that. Freedom, man. How much freedom does that give me? So who does God want? Bottom line, everyone. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever, there was not an exception there. Whoever, man, wants to come to him, he's going to take them. Whoever, the Godwin guy, if he comes to God, man, he's going to take him. He looks like a bumbling goofball, but he's the guy that actually might get the thing, the very part that I need. The dude that's slick and fancy, he's just all looks and he can't get it done. But the dude that doesn't look the part, he's got what God-given ability that can get me what I need. Do y'all remember there's a story in the Bible about a banquet? And the banquet guy, Jesus told this, it's a parable, and he told this story about a banquet. This guy put on a banquet. Do y'all remember this story? And let's just read it. Luke 14, verses 16 through 24. I want to read this to you. I want you to listen to this. This is Jesus' story, okay? This is his parable. He says, Jesus replied, a certain man was preparing a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time of the banquet, he sent his servant to tell those who had been invited, come, for everything is now ready. But they all alike began to make excuses. And I want you to listen to these excuses. The first said, I have just bought a field and I must go and see it. How many of you all have bought a piece of property and have never went and seen it? He goes, I bought a field and I must go see it. Please excuse me. Man, that's weak. Seriously, you can't come up with something better than that? But another one said, I have just bought 5 yoke of oxen and I'm on my way to try them out. How many of you all go buy cars and never see them? Please excuse me. Still another said, I just got married, so I can't come. That guy may have had a legitimate excuse, actually. He was going, yeah, she said, you are not going. We're going to Tahiti. Verse 21, the servant came back and reported this to the master. Then the owner of the house became angry and ordered his servant, go out quickly into the streets and alleys of the town and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. Food and people that are hungry. Okay, there's something there, right? Is there something there? Do you get that? Do you understand what just happened right there? Food and people that are hungry. Sir, the servant said, what you ordered has been done, but there is still room. Then the master told his servant, go out to the roads and the country lanes in McDonald County and compel them to come in so that my house will be full. I tell you, not one of those who were invited will get a taste of my banquet. Here's the deal. If we had made the feast and no one showed up that we invited, would we just throw the food out? God has given us a smorgasbord right here. Just because we have some empty seats, are we done? Do we throw the food out? If we had a banquet and no one showed up, we would be on the phone and we'd be like going, dude, have you ate yet? Come on over. We got a bunch of food. You need to come over and eat with us. Hey, why don't you go by? Hey, let's take some food down to that place where we would be trying to give this food out because we don't want to waste it. The well-fed people may not be interested in eating. The folks that are hungry will accept our invitations. Now I want you to apply that to our spiritual lives. People that are well fed, people that don't see themselves in need, they may not be interested. But how many people do we rub shoulders with? How many Godwins do we rub shoulders with? That, man, they're starving to death. And they are looking for something. It's kind of like that old country song, looking for love in all the wrong places. We may be looking for future followers of Christ in all the wrong places. The hungry person needs a meal. The sick person needs a doctor. The hurting person needs comfort. When offered these necessities of life, they are more apt to accept. The thing, though, with these type of people, these teens that we show up for church on Wednesday night and eat, and these type of people, when they accept, they rarely have anything monetary to offer in return. They usually don't have much to give. Oh, man. Man, you know what? We could really use some people. But here's what they can give. And it's a thing that I believe that Jesus is looking for. They can give an unwavering devotion to the one that holds the cattle on every hillside in our county. He doesn't need our money. He doesn't need our talent. He doesn't need our stuff. He doesn't need fancy. He just needs people with a heart for Him. What can Christ do? What can Christ do with the heart of somebody that comes in and they're fed for the first time? John Wesley, he knew a thing or two about loving Jesus and reaching people. He said this. He said, "Give me 100 preachers who fear nothing but sin and desire nothing but God, and I care not whether they be clergymen or laymen, they alone will shake the gates of hell and set up the kingdom of heaven upon earth." See, there's this old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. We cannot judge who we think is going to be redeemed based on what we see. We don't have any idea who Jesus is going to change. When someone walks through that door, it's not, I should just look at them at face value and think, God, that's your deal, not mine. And love them. Love them while they're here, and love them if they leave, and love them if they stay, and love them if they're talented, love them if they're dirt poor, love them if they're high needs, love them if they've got a ton to offer, love them if they're just a They seem like they're just taking up space and swinging hoses over in the corner. It doesn't matter. Let God do that. Jesus didn't tell us, he won't tell us everybody that walks in is it's the one he's chosen or it's the one that has a chance to do something great for a church. But this is a little bit of insight in who Jesus is looking for. Matthew 9:12 and 13, it says, on hearing this, Jesus said, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. But go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. He wants everyone saved. Can I tell you that there's people that they don't realize they need him, but need him worse than anybody else? There's people that are super talented that need Christ. There's people that have seemingly no talents that need Christ. Who is he going to build his kingdom with? People like me and you and the next person that walks through that door. For I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners. What was his plan for that? What was his plan for that? Luke 22:17 through 20 gives us a little insight on what his plan was. He said, after taking the cup, he gave thanks and said, take this and divide it among you, for I tell you, I will not drink again from the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes. And he took bread and gave thanks and broke it and gave it to them, saying, this is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. In the same way, after the supper, he took the cup, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. Today is Communion Sunday. And that, I want us to be the reminder to us that anybody that walks through that door, anybody that walks down that street, anybody that we pass in contact in general, whether they meet the eye test or not, has a purpose in the kingdom. And that whole cross incident, that whole plan with that cross, it wasn't an incident, it was a planned procedure. That whole cross plan says we don't have any right to say who gets to come. For whosoever will may come. One of the next Billy Grahams may be sitting back here in his teen room on Wednesday nights. We have no idea. That's up to God and that person. The eye test, we need to kick it to the curb. When old Cliff walked in here on Easter Sunday morning, probably just coming out of the pen, dude, he don't look like he has much to offer. Oh, but man, can you imagine Cliff getting to know God in such a way that it changed his life forever? And he come in here, and can you imagine Cliff? You know what? Cliff was one of the best people I know that ever worked with Eli and showed him how to do stuff. That guy could, there's no telling what that guy could do. Man, he's not eye candy. Anthony and I sat at Jane's store Friday, and we talked to, what was his name, John? No secret, went to prison for killing someone. He started telling us his story. Oh, man. He just sitting there, and he just, man, I hope God has mercy on us. I'm just... This guy was a mess. And all he could do is he's now just this old broken guy that knows that there is no chance for him unless God has mercy on his soul and just loves him. And you can just tell that old John is just broken. I don't know. But I think I've been going about this all wrong a lot of times. God's got this master plan. And he really doesn't need my 2 cents worth in on it. I just want to be a part of that plan. I just want to plug in where I can. Today, when you're taking communion, I want you to think about something. I want you to think about when that communion became real for you. And I also want you to think about who was the person responsible to leading you to that Christ. Then ask yourself this, was I really worth it? Now then, think about who you can impact for the kingdom. When we have communion today, you let those thoughts run through your head. All of a sudden, the people that you run into on a daily basis, they'll take on a new feel and a new look. Communion's for everybody that knows Christ as their Savior. We want you to take part. He tells us to examine ourselves. He wants us to look at ourselves. Make sure it's right. We do this in remembrance of what he did for us. Chris is going to come up and he's going to share it with you. And you all know how we do this. Spend some time. Go pray. Spend time asking God, am I good? See if I need to do anything different. And then when you have freedom and you feel good, man, come and take part. I love watching people take communion. It's one of my favorite things. Big Chris, why don't you come on up? Yeah. Help us to seek your will and your face, God, and help us to not judge anybody prematurely, God, and help us to not put a label on anyone, God. Help people to, when we have a chance, God, to be broken and spilled out for them just like you were for us. God, we didn't deserve it. There's not a one of us in here that did. But your love for us saw fit to make a way for us. Even while we were yet sinners, you died for us. God, who needs our help today? Who needs our help? God, there's people that are hurt and broken and beat up in our community. God, help us to be your hands and feet to reach those people. Help us to just be so ready and filled with your Spirit that if something happens, God, and you give us a chance and we can share your